Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. First, let's talk about northern Ukraine. The Russian sources published the video how they managed to discover the concentration of Ukrainian forces in Chernihiv area and the northern part of Sumy area, and as a result of aviation strike, the concentration of forces were destroyed. Probably the Russians also destroyed ammo depot or fuel depot in the same direction. So as we can see, the Ukrainians continue concentration of the forces along the borderlines, and most likely the Ukrainians still don't know for sure where exactly the Russians are planning to open the second front line. Now we'll move a little bit further to the south in Sumy area. We got another video. The Russians managed to discover another air defense radar of armed forces of Ukraine, and as a result of Iskander strike, that radar was also destroyed. So as you can see, the Ukrainians tried to stretch their forces from the north to the south, and the main reason of that because they don't know for sure where exactly the Russians are planning to attack. Now let's move a little bit further to the south, closer to Kharkiv. We have another video how the Russians managed to discover the FPV drone operators base of the armed forces of Ukraine. Another batch of Ukrainians arrived in the area, maybe the recruiters or maybe the young soldiers or something like this, and they were going from one building to another. So basically they revealed their own positions, and after that the Russians, as a result of aviation strike, managed to destroy the base, probably with significant number of FPV drone equipment. So it's a very important, let's say, explosion, very important destruction, because if we increase the numbers of this since the beginning of, let's say, May, you're going to see the significant number of FPV drone strikes from the Ukrainian side. You see, the Ukrainians were pretty active on this direction, but basically they were attacking the Russian territory, and by those attacks they revealed their own positions, and after that the Russians destroyed them with aviation bomb or missile strike. Now let's move to Liptsy. We haven't received anything, probably we haven't been receiving for anything for probably previous 7 days or even more. There are very heavy clashes, but neither the Russians nor the Ukrainians provided us any updates about the current status. Most likely neither the Russians nor the Ukrainians can, let's say, get the complete initiative, and the situation on this direction is like 50-50. Now let's move to Vovchansk. We have very important updates. The Ukrainian pro-Ukraine mappers Deep State updated their maps in the forest between the villages by the name of Borova and Staritsa. Most of the mappers, reliable mappers, updated this territory a long time ago, but Deep State did that just during the previous 24 hours. Now let's talk about Vovchansk itself. As you can see, we have significant number of flags. Let's discuss them. According to information we have, according to pro-Russian sources, the Russian armed forces completely established complete control over the northern part of Vovchansk, forcing the Ukrainians to fall back to the south. For now, we have no geolocations confirming the Russian control over this industrial zone. When talking about pro-Ukrainian mappers, they show that probably 60-70% of the northern part is under Russian control, but there are still positions that are under Ukrainian control, mainly this industrial zone. Other Russian sources, right before we start making the video, published this photo. This is the building, and this is the table. This is the sign of the building, and when if you know Russian, there is written like it's let's say Vovchansk region court. So this is the building of the court, and most likely this photo was made from inside of this territory. So if this information is correct, that means that the Russians at least managed to improve their positions of something like this. For now, this is, let's say, maybe we will adjust the map, of course, after the video, and so this is approximately the current progress based on the geolocations. Once again, according to some mappers, the entire northern part is already under the Russian control. Now let's move further to the south in direction of Novomykhailivka area. We have very interesting updates from the area Mesazharivka, Stelmakhovka. The Russians continue their offensive operation. We almost every single day we got another update about additional Russian progress. For now, without any geolocations, just different mappers reports, and today we got another report from pro-Ukraine mappers Deep State. They updated their maps showing additional Russian progress between the three lines further in direction of Stelmakhovka. Now let's move further to the south. We have a lot of very interesting updates from Makeyevka. As I understand, the clashes are going to be intensified in, let's say, southern Kupiansk direction, and the reason of that is the complete collapse of Ukraine defense belt in Belogorovka. But when talking about Belogorovka, for example, the forces of 81st Air Mobile Brigade published the post that they are still that that Bilogorovka is still under their control. I'll remind you that yesterday the Minister of Defense of Russian Federation reported that Bilogorovka fell and the Russians established complete control, and today the completely different reports from official sources of the brigade that is responsible for this direction. Currently we can't tell for sure what exactly is happening there. We need more updates and more details and probably geolocations to confirm this, but for now we're going to keep this area as is. But regarding the situation in Bilogorovka, we see that the front line started, let's say, moving to the west. For example, the Syriac map confirmed that the Russians managed to improve their positions to the west of Borova, and as a result of clashes during the previous days, the Russians managed to establish complete control over this part of the forest, moving closer and closer to the village by the name of Zhiribets. Furthermore, when talking about northern part of the southern Kupiansk direction, we see significant number of, let's say, losses from the Ukrainian side. The Russians published the video of counter-artillery duels, of, let's say, Lancet strikes, of Krasnopol strikes. So all these things, all these videos, all these episodes tell us that the Russians start clearing the territory, started something like artillery preparation, aviation preparation before further offensive operation in this direction. So if, and of course, it's impossible to attack Makhiivka without updates, without information that Bilogorovka and Serebryanovka forest were cleared by the Russians. So most likely the updates about Bilogorovka and Serebryanka are correct. Furthermore, the Russians continue bombing the town by the name of Nevska. A few more FAPs arrived in the area, so the Russians continue the clearing. Now let's move further. We are going to Chasiv Yar. We have additional updates, additional videos from the territory. The Russians continue offensive. We have updates from the central part of the, let's say, from the southern part of the eastern Chasiv Yar. The Special Forces Kraken of the Armed Forces of Ukraine published another video of Russian attack on the territory, which confirms and gives us additional details about the situation. Anyway, we see that according to the Ukrainians, they managed to repel most of the Russian attacks, but according to the Russians, they managed to dig in deeper and get deeper inside of the eastern Chasiv Yar. Currently, there are very heavy clashes, and both sides confirm this information. So for now, we're keeping this area as is without any changes. Now let's move to Klishchiivka. Lots of very interesting updates we got from this territory. The most important is the Russian flag in the central part. So we have adjusted the map long time ago in the vicinity of the church, and now we have the final geolocation that the area around the church was captured by the Russians. It's the building or the ruins that left from the building with the Russian flag. During the previous days, we got a report that the Russians captured this part of Klishchiivka, and now the battle for Klishchiivka entered the final stage, the battle for the hill on the west. The Russians already started artillery preparation of the territory. We see significant number of explosions, artillery strikes on the Ukrainian forces. We can't tell for sure where exactly the battle for Klishchiivka is going to be ended, but most likely we can start counting days of this. Now let's move further to the south, to Avdiivka area, to the western part. The Russians, as a result of offensive, managed to establish complete control over the village by the name of Nailaylva. We have videos, we have everything that confirms this information, and we have already adjusted the map as well as most of the mappers. So now the Russians captured the main defense belt, Nailaylva, Umanska, and now there's just one settlement left under Ukraine control by the name of Yasnobrodovka. After fall of Yasnobrodovka, the Ukrainians will not be able to hold the territory any longer, and they will be forced to fall back further to the west, to the, let's say, western side of Karlovka water reservoir. Now let's move to the south, further to Krasnogorovka. There are still very heavy clashes. The Russians are improving their positions every day, but for now we still haven't received any geolocations confirming Russian control over the eastern part. Novomykhailivka, Konstantinovka, we have additional updates. As you can see, significant number of geolocations. The Russians, after a very long operational pause, renewed their offensive. Currently, they are on the stage of counter-artillery duels. During the previous days, they managed to destroy a significant number of Ukrainian artillery systems, tanks from hidden positions, and mortar positions, and many other things. So everything reminds us the battle for Novomykhailivka on the first stage. The Russians will continue to Konstantinovka. Of course, the Russians will try to do this much faster than the battle for Novomykhailivka, but obviously we are talking about months, not days or weeks. Very interesting details we got from the southern part of Urozhaine. After very heavy clashes for the southern parts, for the southern farms, the Russians, as a result of a very heavy and bloody battles and clashes, managed to establish complete control over the southern Urozhaine. So the foothold for further offensive to the north is ready. The Russians are pushing not just on Urozhaine direction, the Russians also pushing in Staromayorsk. So as you can see, the Russian drone was flying above the farms, trying to find the flag, and there is the Russian soldiers entering on the open space, and they're raising Russian flag, and they're very happy, and of course they're very tired, very dirty as well, but they managed to do this. Now the Russians are going to move further to the west, and when talking about the central and the western part of Urozhaine, the story is the same. This part of the town is under very heavy fire and bombardments, and we see that Ukrainians can't do anything and can't show any resistance to the Russians. Robotina, the Russians continue improving their positions without any significant changes or updates on the ground. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.